Hi, I'm Richard with the Data Success Team. Today I'd like to show you changes that have been introduced into Dataedo's profiling module with version 23.2. The first big change is right here in the front end. We now have a sample data tab for table and view objects. If we click on that, we can run this and sample data for that object. We get 10 rows as before. We can refresh these as needed. And as always, you will recall that this is not saved to the repository. This is preview only. One thing to know, however, is that this data does persist through the entire session that you have Dataedo Desktop open. I did run this on the employees table earlier, and you can see that sample data is still there. The next thing to know is how to get to profiling. As before, this is in the ribbon under the data profiling module. You should know, however, this is in the context of whatever collection you have selected in the repository explorer. It does not go by table. It is for the entire collection. So when we open that, we will get the entire collection open. I've already got it open here. There we see the AdventureWorks collection is open. All of the tables and all of the views you can see are there ready for profiling. Before we do that, I do want to talk about the settings icon here in the ribbon. This is similar to what it was before, where we can enable or disable profiling entirely, whether we can enable or disable saving and profiling results. And then down here below, it used to be that we could exclude columns to have their distribution and values profiled based on their sensitivity classifications. We can still do that, but now we do them separately. So for example, right now I have distribution disabled for sensitive data, and I have values disabled for non-sensitive and sensitive data. We manage these separately like that. So I'm not going to save. Also in the ribbon, notice it is simpler than it used to be. Several of the icons have been combined, so we have the actions in this drop-down menu under this button. So we can do full profiling, profiling of distribution only, profiling of values only. The next action here is to refresh the profiling for anything that has been previously profiled in this collection. So I actually have not done any profiling in this collection yet, so if I click that, it's not going to do anything. The more exciting action here, though, is the second one, where you can download this command file now and schedule it in your Windows Task Scheduler, just the way you do on the import changes for your metadata connections to your data sources. You can also do this for profiling. This means that you will always have fresh and up-to-date profiling if you schedule that. Okay, the next section to talk about here is this list on the left. First thing to know is, just like in the front page of Dataedo Desktop, these are double clicks to open things in the main content pane. So double click, as before, double click is your friend, and that will get you to where you need to be. The next thing, this isn't a change, but just remember that whatever you select here, you will not only select that, you will select the child objects to that, whether you can see them or not. So remember that you are selecting everything if you select a table or likewise. So I will select the entire collection there, and notice the columns are included, and I'm going to run full profiling. There we go. Notice those gray icons. Those mean that profiling is queued. The green means that it is successfully completed. The white means that it is in progress. Occasionally, you will see an orange icon there. That means that the profiling is incomplete for that table, whether you canceled halfway through or you haven't run the sample data. That would also give you an orange icon. So if you see orange, typically it means you need to refresh the data for that object, the profiling data for that object. Now I'm going to stop this. No need to watch the whole thing run. Next thing to notice in this list is that we do have these blocked symbols, meaning that these columns do contain sensitive data as we defined in settings. And so the profiling is blocked for them. You remember we had those set up so that some of them had slightly higher or slightly different requirements based on sensitivity. So you can see the difference right there. So this is to indicate that it's not a mistake that there's nothing there, is to indicate nothing is intended to be there because you intentionally blocked profiling of those columns. And you'll also see that in the portal. You'll see the word blocked on those, indicating you're not expecting to see profiling for those. Now, if we look over here in the content pane, you'll notice we do have sample data. In the bottom section, though, this is a new feature where we can actually put a filter on the data that is included in your profiling results. Right now it's taking everything, but I can change this. I'm going to put a where clause on there, where job title equals buyer. Watch the job title column up above. I'm going to save and refresh, lower right hand corner. And you can see above, we now have only buyer rows there. A word of caution on this. When you do this and you save and refresh right here in the lower right hand corner, this only refreshes the sample data that you're looking at. It only took care of that table being updated. All of the columns still have all of the data included in their profiling. To illustrate this, I'm going to go to the job title column, double click, and lower right hand corner you can see your values list contains things where the job title is not buyer. We could refresh this right here like that. Notice now we have only one value because we limited it to the one. And now the caution is that only updated that one column because we did it in the content pane for that column. All of the other columns still have the other data for the entire table. So you could very easily get into trouble here if you don't remember what you've done. The easier way to do this and make sure that you have everything is select the entire table, all of the columns, and run the full profiling on them again so they're all updated to have that filter applied to them. I'm going to go back and I'm going to remove that filter, show you how to do it. You simply highlight it and hit delete, and you could save and refresh right there, show that it actually worked. And now I recommend run the full profiling again so all of the columns are also updated to include all of the rows in their profiling. Now the next change to look at is right here in the content pane, upper right hand corner, the value stats. You may recognize we now have a graph there that shows the distribution of the stats that we're describing. In this case, the minimum, the average, and the max as defined right above that in the text. Remember, this is not the same as what we're looking at below, where in the lower right-hand corner, we're looking at the number of rows that have that value for each one of those. Up above, we're looking at the string lengths. Down below, we're looking at occurrence of values. So don't get those too confused. And as you work with this profiling data, you will notice that the stats that are being reported in this graph differ or vary depending on what data type you're looking at on the column. So something to keep in mind there, but it does give you another way to look into that data. Something that I have always liked in the profiling module is having this value list right here in the lower right, directly next to the descriptions and classifications that you can edit right next to it. So we could look at your description right there, and based on values we're seeing, we could edit, update, alter, review, accept, whatever that verb is there, we can do the appropriate action based on the sample data we're looking at next to it. That remains. But we now, because of the sample data tab in the front, we can do the same thing here. I can pick this up and show my sample data right next to my columns, and I can do my editing of those right there. Make that a little bigger so you can see it. And it gives us that ability to look at sample data while we're editing our descriptions in particular. Gives us more ability to see and work with and use that sample data productively. So those are the changes. One other change that's happening that you won't see yet is that Dataedo is retaining a history of your profiling events over time. Those will be saved into your repository, and they'll be exposed to you in a future version as we further expand this module. Right now, just rest assured it is saving that, and it will be available for you to use and see that profiling history over time sometime in the future. As always, thank you for using Dataedo. If you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to us at success@dataedo.com, and we can help you resolve any questions. Have a good day.